Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lam, and I'm founder and CEO of WisePass. Today, I'm going to be talking about the digital transformation. This is a workshop about like how just to take your brand and actually apply some digital activities, so you will be able just to embrace the new digital platform that we have in the world, especially about WisePass, obviously. But I'll discuss about in the first big part like about all the definitions and the concepts that we will have to worry about, and then we will then after that discuss about the workshop, and I will show you like step by step how just to do build a consumer base with a trial campaign. So it's gonna be like very practical. So I'm just gonna start presenting. And here you go. Okay. So you shall be able to see like concept and workshop. So the structure of the online event today is going to be roughly 10-15 minutes, if not less, about the concept, and then roughly 10 and 15 minutes about the workshop. So let's dive in and let's talk about the concept. In the concept, what I'm going to talk about is really about defining the digital transformation. I'll be talking about like digital platforms. I'm going to talk a lot about like WisePass as well, and talk about like what is digital transformation, what it is for brands, and then why we need it. I'll talk about like what's WisePass, and then when we have all those like definitions cleared out, then we can jump on the workshop. So about digital transformation. To me, right now, like a lot of companies are facing the challenge of like turning their company from a very traditional one to a company that can handle like all the new digital tools. And that has become a necessity because like with the rise of the internet, like a lot of consumers now are using devices like on the laptops, on their phones, and smartphones, and the brands need to stay relevant and meaningful to the consumers. They need to be able like just to give their consumers like new ways just to buy from them, new ways just to communicate with them. So I'll give an example, which usually everyone understands is maybe like 20, 30 years ago, one of the industry that has tremendously changed their ways of selling is the airlines. So 30 years ago, more than 20 years ago, like it used to be a very like offline and offline thing where you would be thinking about, I need to book a flight ticket and go somewhere else. Then what you would do usually is to go to a store, an agency, and you go there and then you tell this person, I'd like just to go from here to there. Let's say I fly from Paris to New York on next week on Wednesday, and it would be fine if it's a 4 p.m. flight. Fine. And then you would just go there, make the transaction, pay by cash, pay by check, pay by card, whichever. And then eventually you'll get like a piece of paper, and then you would go back home, and then the next week you would just go on Wednesday to the airport. You just show your ticket, right? And as you already know, like now, like the booking a flight ticket now is being mostly done online. You can just get on a website. You can go on an app. You can just stay all this without just going to an agency. You can just pay online as well, and then you can just get your ticket, and then you can just go right away to the airport so you can show your reservation, your flight ticket. And then now they also apply even more technologies for with a QR code, and then you just get your ticket and you go. You don't even talk to the person. And I can see in Vietnam that Vietjet Air is doing this with their kiosk, like where you just put your reservation number, and then the flight ticket is just like printed out on a small piece of paper. So the transformation here is the old way of selling was actually offline, where you would go and to an agency and then you would do the transaction in this location. Now you can just do it anywhere through the website, the apps. You can pay online. You can redeem actually now digitally without a human being anymore. So this is like what we're talking about when it's about digital transformation. I'd say for some other people, like digital transformation could be also something different. So for me, like when I talk about digital transformation today, like especially for brands, it's reinventing or re-engineering the way of reaching your consumers and reaching them again. So in this case, like every brand will have a target audience and send them a message. And then now you have a different digital platforms you can use, and you can just like pay those digital platforms. So let's talk about that. You will have YouTube, you can have Facebook, Instagram, Google, Snapchat, Pinterest, and you name it, TikTok as well. I forgot TikTok. So those platforms are digital, and then one of the digital transformation from the brands is actually just to go on those platforms and actually pay this platform. So every time they want to reach those target consumers, you just pay like a set amount of money, right? So usually the way they're gonna charge you is gonna be like cost per impression or click, and then you pay for a set amount, you have a budget, you run it, and then you're done. So hopefully like the budget is good enough for you just to reach these millions of users. And that's pretty much of it. What we do at WisePass is different, but before that, I'd like just to go through those digital platforms. The main issues we see with those digital platforms when you do paid media is actually the cost, because as you will see, competition will increase, more brands want to get on the platform, and then your cost to reach those users will keep increasing, and it's going to keep increasing on and on and on. So usually what we see is you have a budget, and then what's going to happen is like you will just burn the budget, and then you will have to wait for the next year just to run something else, right? So you will say, okay, I'll just put like X amount of money for Google, Facebook, and the rest on social media, and then I'll run my ads. The second problem is capability. When you do run ads on those platforms, that's pretty simple. That's going to be either like a picture or a video or a Facebook post, and then you just run, and then you drive up the engagement, you drive up the views, but then if they click, they may go somewhere else. If you have a landing page or a website, that's fine as well. But then that's pretty much of it. Like you won't be able to do more than that. You just reach those users, you send them a message, and then it's stuck there. And then if you want to look at the impact, especially now I'm going to focus on like brands selling their product offline. That's very hard because like selling or trying to promote online your brand and then measuring the actual impact offline is one of the key challenge. And this is why I actually at WisePass, we're trying to solve this problem for brands trying to transform digitally. We believe that this is still necessary just to invest on all these platforms, of course. We're not trying to compete with Google. We're not trying to compete with Facebook. This is actually some complementary platforms. But what we do with WisePass is actually to build an ad tech solution where brands can reach the consumers, but also build the consumer base on our system. And actually, after that, what they do is actually to build this relationship, and we build an app for that, so the consumers can actually use the app, and then the brands will actually send them not only messages, but some various activities. So just to make sure like people can understand, WisePass is not a paid media, but like we are an owned media. So in this case, whenever a brand wants to reach the consumers, we don't charge the brand. So this is why it's more cost effective for the brand. That means like they will be able to have like a system where they can build and be in check with the budget, but also have like a large user base over time, so they can make sure like the cost of the reach is going to keep decreasing. So this is extremely important for finance, because most of the time brands will have like a tight budget, and we're trying to make sure like we can be showing them that with the budget that you have, you can do more and more in the future. So that's actually one thing. The second, powerful features. What we do with WisePass is really simple. What we do is actually we try to make sure like brands can acquire, engage, promote, and reward the users within a single platform. And that's very powerful in terms of capabilities. And the reason why is because like most of the time brands will have like a very complex plan where they want to reach the users, and then they want to do some activations, and then they want to do some promotions, and then they want to do some loyalty programs and all that, right? What we do is actually just to put in a single platform all those activities so they can reach the consumers. And we, in the bottom line, someone else just told me what we do at WisePass is just to make branding easier. So instead of actually just to have like a series of activities scattered all around, we just like centralize everything. I give an example. It's just like sometimes we've met like Coca-Cola last year. So whenever they have to make a campaign for like a new SKU, they will just think about, okay, I'll do like a trial campaign, and then I'll think we'll look around for some events, and then maybe we'll do some promotions with the modern trade channels. And then for loyalty, well, it's too complicated because like we don't know how to reach those consumers, and we don't have any metrics, right? So they end up actually giving up on some activities because it's too complex just to build a consumer base that is easy to reach and easy to follow in terms of various activities. And they don't know how to segment their consumers. And also they face a daunting challenge of, well, people just don't want to download a Coca-Cola app or a Sprite, Coca, or Fanta, or any other SKUs they have, because it doesn't make sense for the consumers. So how can they stay relevant with the consumers? That's another issue they have. So that's capabilities. And now, like for relationship building, well, the thing is like, how do you build a relationship with your consumers from the moment you acquire them, and then let's say like you will just give them something else to try, right? Okay, come and try our new product. Great. How do you reach them again? How do you know if those consumers actually like your product, they engage? How do you target them specifically? Because maybe they tried like 5 or 10 times. And then you want to tell them, well, thank you very much. Come to our event. Because like there's a secret event actually we create on WisePass, so those specific consumers can join. Or you can create like a public event, because like if you want to engage way more people, or that's fine as well. Or if you want to build like a promotion system where it's going to be measurable online in some on-premise locations, then you will be able to do so, because you will be doing this through a platform such as WisePass. Those are things that are very difficult to do on Facebook, because what you'll see is mostly like the amount of likes or the followers you have. but you won't know if those people will really engage with you offline. You will not be able to understand like if those people are today maybe like your consumers or they like you sometimes like in the past, but now they don't like you anymore or or they're not as engaged as before. So that's actually the system that we're building so we can measure the freshness, we can measure the level of engagement, and we can measure like, well, eventually the ROI of your investment because we can actually measure the sales through our app as well. So this is a relationship builder. So we bear this in mind that now that you have that, those definitions, let's take a look about the workshop. Okay, so I'm in time because it's 15 minutes. So before that, I'll just make sure like not anyone have any questions. So I'm just going to wait for a few seconds. Seems like some people want to join the workshop, so I'm just going to accept them. Apparently, Mr. Sebastian would like to join the workshop. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds more. I think Sebastian is here. Sir, if you are on mute, that would be great. And welcome to the workshop as a VIP guest. Okay, so now that I've given out all the definitions about and the concept in the beginning, now I'm going to work and I'm going to focus on the workshop. So fine, like let's say this is digital transformation. It's all about like how you can build a consumer base, reach them again, do a lot of different activities, track them all, and then see like what's going on. So in the future, you can maybe do some segmentation. You can do a lot of different things. So you can be better at branding, basically. That's actually the bottom line. It's all about like how to build a better relationship with your consumers. And this is what we're all about at WisePass. So definition. So I think like all the brands, the marketers, the brand managers, like will already know about this. Like the holy grail of marketing is to send the right message to the right audience at the right time in the right location. And I would add one more thing, which is like an ability to measure that. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say this sentence that everybody understands. And today, the focus is how to build this right audience. So we're not going to talk about like at the right time, the right location, or measuring the impact and the right message and all that, because we'll keep that for the next digital transformation webinar. So let's say we want to build the right audience. How do we do so? So we're talking about consumer base building. Like how can you build a valuable consumer base for your brand so you can reach later to perform other branding activities? So this is a question we'd like just to answer today. First, I'll discuss a bit more about WisePass and give you like what we need to understand. At WisePass, what we are doing is we focus on the offline world, and we focus mostly on what we call a HoReCa. So hotel, restaurant, cafe, lounge, clubs. People would call this also like on-premise, which is like where people go and consume. And so they buy and consume. And among those stakeholders, we will have like three types of players or stakeholders. So the first one is brands, second is venues, and then consumers. So let's talk about brands. With WisePass, the way we work with brands is pretty straightforward. We're just a tool for them. So what the brand does is actually to do a trial campaign, and then they just sponsor like a set of products. And what they do is just to deliver the products to the venues. In case of, well, here is beer. So let's say like you're a beer brand. So you can set like, okay, I have a budget for 10,000 beers, 20,000 beers, and I want to build a consumer base of X. Then this is my budget for the year. Let's run that. And what's going to happen is whenever like a consumer is going to redeem a product at the bar, at the restaurant, at the club, WisePas requires a transaction and the platform for the brand. And this is how you build the consumer base. For venues basically just benefit from the sponsorship from the brand via WisePas. So what we do is actually just to identify a set of locations that will fit with the target audience of the brand. Then venues will basically just receive the traffic and monetize the traffic that they get from WisePas and the brand. So it's pretty straightforward. Like they just get a bunch of people coming to their place, it increases occupancy, and then that's actually a great tool for them because like it's a sponsorship basically, but it's just more like a digital sponsorship. Instead of just putting like a bunch of free beers and then they have to figure out something else, they just receive the beers, they just put like the WisePass box, and that's it. So eventually you have consumers. So what are the consumers doing? So they subscribe to a plan and they will go to that venue to redeem a product from the brand. And the benefit from the perks to the brand allows them to enjoy. That's pretty straightforward. And the way they subscribe to the plan is just through an app where they can download. It's called WisePass. And we have different plans. I'll talk about this later. And what's going to happen is like they have a set amount of pass per day, and then they will be able just to redeem those pass with the products from the brand at the venue. So let's get back to the question. How to build a consumer base through trial. So I'm just going to take a bit of time. If our guests have any questions, feel free. I'm just going to take a couple seconds just to take some rest. Okay. All right, so let's go. How to build a consumer base through trial. So here's some guidelines that I'd like just to show. We structure that we realize 6 grand guidelines, I'd say. So objective, metrics, budget, timeline, activity, review. Okay. And I'll give you an example. Let's say my company is Pernod Ricard, and then I actually want to build a consumer base, like a whiskey consumer base. So let's do that. So the objective is actually how to build a database of like 1,000 whiskey consumers. And now you understand how to build that because like what you do is actually to set a set amount of bottles, let's say here 2,000, and then you're going to send it to some venues, and then you're going to run it for 12 months. And then the metric you're going to focus on is actually to look at how many new consumers you generated on our platform. I'll show you a screenshot of how it looks like a bit later. But then here it's pretty clear, like I want to build 1,000 whiskey consumers. It's going to be done through WisePass. And then we're going to actually keep 2,000 bottles of, let's say, Chivas or Valentine's or Glenlivet, whatever brand is whiskey. And then we will see when we will review that, like how many new consumers we generated and in which location we managed just to get those new consumers. Okay. After that, when you have like the big outline, the second outline you need to focus on is those 4: SKU, quantity, pricing, and venues. So let's say to build a trial campaign for whiskey, you are able to play with the SKU because like you may have a lot of SKUs for a brand. Let's say Chivas may have like Chivas 12 years old, 18 years old, 25 years old, and who knows like any other SKUs like so they have a lot of SKUs, so they can play with SKUs. The second is actually to play with the quantity of SKUs you want to play with. So, and then you have the venues, like in how many locations do you want to send those bottles of whiskey? And pricing. So pricing is going to be more interesting. It's going to be more like how many pass will it cost for a consumer to redeem a bottle of whiskey. So let's say here, I am the brand manager of Chivas, and then among the 2,000 bottles, I will keep like 1,250 bottles of Chivas 12 years old. I'm gonna price it for 8 pass, and I'm gonna select 8 bars where I think it's gonna be worth it. So I'm gonna deliver those bottles to these bars accordingly during those 12 months. And that's one example. Second is there's still like 750 bottles remaining. So I'll pick like Chivas 18 years old, and then I will put like 500 bottles across 6 different bars. But the pricing will be 14 pass. As a reminder, Chivas 12 is 8, Chivas 18 is 14. So as a brand manager, you'll say, okay, this is going to be a higher amount of pass. Fine. And then Chivas 25 years old is going to be, let's say, 25 pass. And then that's going to be the remaining 250 bottles you'd like just to use for your trial campaign. And instead of actually spreading those bottles in too many locations, you just want to focus them in 3 bars. But you're the one deciding that. You're the one who actually says, okay, that's pretty much like how I'd like just to distribute my my SKUs, my bottles, and this is how like how I'd like just to price my my bottle. So now fast forward, let's say you've done that, and then you're in the middle of like your month number 3, and in month number 3 you'll see that well, you managed just to acquire a little bit more than 200 consumers. 1,966 pass have been redeemed. So basically, like you have like those 200 consumers that went out to those bars, and then they redeemed those pass. So now you can see as well like how many new consumers you managed to get in the beginning, and then you have the repeat consumers, and then you can have the breakdown on the monthly basis. We also make some breakdown in terms of outlets or venues. So that is basically like how it works in terms of trial campaign. So you have a very simple workshop where you can just look at all the different metrics, the objectives, the venues, the pricing, and the activity, and then you can just like fill out like all the different like items. And after that, when you have finished doing this, it's very simple and straightforward. You just like start and deliver the products. And then after that, you start to generate some consumers. And the consumers is basically handled by WisePass. So we work on our end just to get like the consumers to download the app, sign up, and subscribe, right? Some brands have asked us like if they're able just to drive their own consumers, like they just want to do their own marketing activity as well because like they don't want to rely on us. That's fine. I mean, like as long as they just subscribe, we're okay with that. And then they will just run their own stuff, and then they will select their bars, and they will just do the pricing themselves, and then they want to decide like how long it's gonna last, and not us. And they want to be able just to make sure as well that they can do their own events. Like they will do the events, but then they will generate those consumers because they've done that in the past. So they want to have more control. We understand that. We're happy just to let them do whatever they want as long as it complies with our guidelines. And that's fine. So, okay, I'm in time. 10 minutes. So the key takeaway today is really simple. Like we want to make sure like in this workshop, like how do you build a relevant consumer base? And in this case, I chose like the brand Chivas, and then Shivas wants to build a consumer base, a whiskey consumer base, in, let's say, with WisePass. So you took a look at like how they did it on those slides, and then you can see that, okay, so people are subscribing, and then people are going to the bar, and then people are redeeming it. So this is how we qualify digitally, because like it gets through the QR code in the bar, and then we can record and register that. And because we know that those consumers are whiskey consumers, now it creates actually a really relevant consumer base for the brand to use it later, so they can do way more things. So we can actually use that consumer base and engage that consumer base with, let's say, activation. So that's very likely what we're going to talk about in the next webinar in July. So I had a question with this. So what is PASS? Okay. And before that, okay, Sebastian, I also have your questions. I'm just going to answer right after that. So what is PASS? So pretty much like PASS is like some points, basically. So we offer different plans at a different price, offering a set amount of PASS each day. So here you go. We have like starter, standard, premium. So each plan we have a different pricing, 10, 150, 350. So prices might change though, because like we're about just to restart in July or August, depending on how the COVID-19 will affect the situation. But the point is, like, it's like Netflix basically. You have like different plans at different price, and the only thing that is different is actually we're in the physical world. So we are basically using just a simple point system for the brand, so they can play with that. And depending on the objective of the brand, some brands want to be extremely premium, so they target people who can afford, let's say, 350. Some brands are pretty mass, so they want to be able just to reach a very large amount of users. So the pricing has to be, let's say, under $10. Especially in Vietnam, like we saw that whenever you are under $10, like a lot of people can afford that. The economic growth is good enough for people now just to afford like $10 a month. And the value proposition as well. So the value proposition is something extremely important, because like, let's say with Singha last year, the pricing of a Singha beer was actually one pass per beer. And then, so if you were on the starter membership, then you would get like 3 beers per day, because 1 beer, 1 pass. Here is like 3 pass per day. And a beer would cost, I think, around like $3. So let's say like within like almost 3 beers, like you get around like your money back. So it's really about the value proposition. So we incentivize the end user just to subscribe, because like, they get a good deal, pretty much. But the control is on the brands, and they decide like how just to price their SKUs. So now, yes, Sebastian had like a question about like, do I provide an API to access this information or raw data to download? So the short answer is we are building APIs to automate and share the raw data. So the raw data is pretty much for now like emails. And the second, because like, there's a lot of APIs we're building for 2020. So let me just do like a really short list of that. There's a API you can access, so you can look at all the consumers that you managed to acquire. And then you can, some people want to know like everything. Some people want to know they just want to get the email. Some people just want to get this and that. So we're trying to standardize everything so brands can actually leverage this. The second is we are building APIs, but it's more like a B2B APIs, just to generate more subscribers on our platform. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a random bank have millions of customers, and then those customers we have lots of points, because like banks have like loyalty, credit cards, and all that kind of thing. So what we do is actually simple. Like we just provide an API where the bank will just integrate us, and then We just accept the points, and then they can just top up their email account so they can get a plan, whatever plan they want. So A, B, C, D. And then the banks just work with us, and then they pay us like a set flat fee. Because we're building all the types of APIs with other companies such as Facebook and even Brian. So those APIs will be also different stuff. Like we're building them because like it's part of our system, so we can create events internally. But I think like your question, Sebastian, is really more about like I'm a brand, can actually get the data automatically, so I can use it on my own with my own system. And the short answer is yes, but it will be like just email in the beginning. And as we grow and as we go, we will be able to understand more like your capability at handling the data. So you can do more, and then we'll be able to understand better and actually build APIs accordingly. Most of the brands, to be honest, will be they usually won't have the ability just to build APIs or have their own database and actually process them and do more. But that's an interesting question. Okay, so this is today. I'm on time, so 15 minutes, 15 minutes. This is the digital transformation first webinar of WisePass about trial. We learned really much about like how to build a consumer base. And in the next workshop, like we'll see like after that we build that consumer base, how can we engage with that consumer base? I hope that you had a great time, and then in the future I'll be more than happy to answer more questions and simplify and help you for the brands that we're working with. Have a really good day. I'll see you next time.